We did that last week.
Oh, damn, I screwed up already. We're going over wells, of course. There are a lot of different wells, but we're going to first go over the process of getting water from whatever well to the house. Okay, then we'll go over different types of wells. Typical is a deep well, 4-inch casing well. Okay, which is basically a piece of 4-inch PVC pipe getting put down in the ground with a screen on the bottom. Usually they're about 100 foot deep, with maybe a 20 or 40 foot screen. Okay. Every well has a different level of water, depending on what area you are at. Okay, some might be 20 foot deep, you hit first water, some you hit water 10 foot deep, some you hit first water 40 foot deep. Okay. You never know depending on the area and the well itself. All right. Generally, you have your casing, and am I blocking you or you're all right? Okay. You have your casing, you have a wellhead up top, okay, that seals your well. All right. In that wellhead, you also have a piece of 1-inch, you have a 1-inch PVC fitting that will take a 1-inch conduit because you have wire that has to go to the well. Okay, you have a submersible pump. The pump is down in the well. Of course, you need electric to it. Okay. The other thing that is in this here well is a pitless adapter, which is a mechanical fitting that 3 foot down below the frost level connects the water line going to the house with the pump, the line going to the pump. Okay. This is a little different drawing, a little bit bigger drawing of it. What it is basically a T. You connect the pipe on here going down to the pump. Okay. This here has an O-ring in it, so there's a saddle that goes around this here 4-inch pipe. So when that lowers into the pipe, it actually goes into that fitting. There's an O-ring that fits right into that fitting, okay, to make a tight seal. On the other end, there's a spring-loaded lever. So when the guys lower it down, that lever's spring-loaded. Right now it's folded up. And as they're lowering it down, they find that hole, the spring pushes it in. Okay, so once this gets locked in, that can't come back out. Otherwise, pressure would push it right back out. Right? Makes sense? Mm-hmm. So that's what a pitless adapter is doing. It's keeping it in there and it's making it accessible from the top. Now, the way it's accessible is the top of this also has threads in it. Okay, and the guys bring a T fitting. We have some out there that are 8 foot long. We have some that are 5 foot long. Whatever, because you never know how deep that's going to be either. They actually send the teeth, they take the cap off. This is a wire stainless steel cable, the green you're seeing here, okay, with a loop on the end. They pull that out, they send that T down, they screw it into this pitless adapter, okay, good and tight. After they screw it into that, they lift up on that cable, and that lifts that lever up, which will now let that piece pull out. Making sense? All right, that's your pitless adapter. Sometimes they're very hard to get out. Sometimes this here wears into the PVC casing, so now you have a groove in there and it's stuck in a groove. And we have a tool we try and send down to yank it up and free it. Sometimes we get it, sometimes we don't. I've already used a tractor to pull in that cable.
My mother-in-law had to use a
tractor?
a four-wheeler to pull one out in North Carolina out of a well.
We're not to pull the pipe out now, just to pull that cable to unlock it.
To pull the pump out, they had to pull out.
Okay, and that, we've done that before too. But I mean, sometimes that cable will break, and now what are you doing? You're 3 foot down. So you gotta dig down 3 foot, and you gotta cut it right above it, and work on it to get it out, and then repair the casing afterwards. I mean, you have a choice, you gotta get the pump out, okay? So after you hook that T up, and let's say everything goes right, you take this cap off, you pull that out, you hook the T up, you release the pitless, you start pulling it up. Okay? This here pipe, I've had them already 300 foot. Okay, which is a lot of pipe. I've gone down the road with them already. Okay, because of how long they are. There's also a check valve on the bottom of this pump when you put them in new. So when it pumps water up, the water don't just pump back down into the well, right? If that check valve is good, and you have a 300 foot piece of pipe, and let's say your first water is at 40 foot, you're not pulling a pump and pipe, but you're pulling 260 foot of water. Okay, so they're heavy at times, you know what I'm saying, depending on the situation, all right? And it is what it is, you just gotta do it, okay? Or get a truck in there to do it, one way or the other. The other thing, and I'm going through kind of problems that happen as you go. Sometimes it's an old steel casing. Okay, now you go to pull that thing up and it's all rusted in there. And next thing you hit a rust spot because the pump is, I'm gonna say 3 7/8 inches. And the pipe is maybe 4 1/8 inches.
In diameter.
Yes, so it's just getting down there. So you hit anything, or let's say if somebody hits this with a lawnmower, known fact, what it always happens, they hit this here with the lawnmower, they put a crack in the casing, they don't call us. They say, oh, it'll be fine. Now dirt gets in there. All you have to do is get a little pebble stuck in here. Okay? Now you're wedged. Now last when we pulled out the tractor, we had to yank it with the tractor and the pump was all scarred up. We were able to get it out, luckily. I mean, sometimes they have a tool that you could cut the pipe and push the pump down and let the pump lay in the bottom of the well and just put a new pump on top of it.
Wait, I'm sorry. Did you say you will leave the pump in the bottom of the well just hanging out there and just put a new one on top of it?
If you can't get it out,
just bye.
then you basically cut it and they push it down. Hopefully it doesn't go through the screen. You never know if that's going to happen when it drops, if it does drop. But, you know, that's known to be done too.
What about the electric?
Same thing, they cut it, leave it down there and go new.
Isn't that like dangerous?
No,
I
it's
guess
just
it's not
something down
connected to
there.
anything.
And,
It's just,
you know,
I'm gonna drink this water
It's
still.
either that or drill a new well. Okay, I mean, you know, sometimes you just don't have a choice to do certain things. All right. Now this casing could be 4 or 3 inch. There are some over in Hollywood's over here that are 3 inch, and then you need to put a 3 inch pump down.
How is it, if the diameter is only 4 inches max, we'll say, how is it that that size of a pump can make that water pull up from the screen area to produce that much water if the pump is only that size?
It does. I know what you mean. It's only a little gap around the entire thing, though, you have to remember too.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, and you also have, you have to remember, when you have water pressure, there's 0.43 pounds of water per foot. So if you have water at 40 foot and you have a 100 foot well, you have let's say 60 foot of water. That's 60 times 4.3 is the pressure you have down here. That water is pushing down. So it's not just water laying there, it's pressure. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I can get more technical into that where head pressure and everything else, but it doesn't.
So in comparison to city water, how is that, that's not the same, is it? Because it would take longer to get it from the well than it would from the city, correct?
Yes, but think about it. Think about your water towers in places. How high are they?
Very tall.
Why do you think they're that high?
To
They
build
pump that
pressure.
water up there, and now the water's sitting there, and that head of water is pressurizing the entire mains throughout that city, because pressure equals itself. Whatever pressure you have over here, you have over here. So if they have 200 foot, right away, that's 80 pounds of pressure, not even pumping anything. Right? 4.3 per foot, 200 feet, 80 feet. 80
So the
80
city's
feet.
greater than, you said 80 versus well 60.
Well, usually your city's not even 80, it's sometimes 50 or whatever, but I mean, they start off in that tower for that reason,
Right,
you know.
right.
They store it up rather than out. So, now up north they use reservoirs, and now that's all pumped. So, you know, which the wells, the towers are pumped too, but it's getting pumped from a well
Right.
into the tower.
Right.
So, anyways, that's pretty much from here over. So you see, you have your electric coming down. Okay, now this is usually wire nutted. There's a connection here, and there's wire nuts on that electric. So you unscrew that, and they pull the pump out, and what comes out is the pipe from here down, and all that wire pulls out, and they put it on the lawn or whatever, put the new pump in. The connection of the wires between the pump and the wire is always soldered. And we're one of the only companies that do that. But I'm not gonna put a pump down 80 feet and have a wire slip off or something. So we solder the connection, you know, so there's no mistake there, okay? When they pull it up, they generally chlorinate the well, half a gallon of bleach, okay? They usually too, and we tell them, is to wipe off the pipe with a chlorine rag, okay? Because you lay it on somebody's lawn. What if they have a dog?
Yeah.
Okay, right. So, I mean, that's the reason you chlorinate. Whenever you disturb a well, open up a well at any point, they always chlorinate. Okay, because it was a closed system. You opened it, touched it with your hands and whatever, so you chlorinate. And the people are told to flush it out until it clears. So, any questions from that point on? I mean, that's a 4-inch or 3-inch deep well with a submersible pump. All right. Before I go into the other wells, I'm going to go into going into the house. Okay. Once again, the wire comes down, and the pitless adapter. There's a pipe connected here. Okay. That runs into the house, and I'm dried up already. That water line comes into the house. Okay. Going through the concrete or cinder block, we always put a sleeve. Okay. A lot of guys do not. And we also, a lot of times, find a leak in the basement, and it's because the pipe going through actually wore a hole in it because it went through the cinder block and no protection on it. So now we have to go outside, dig 3 foot down, and take that pipe apart, put a sleeve through, put a new pipe through, seal it good. Okay, so whenever we go through, we put a sleeve. Now, if we're going to replace that pump and it's on a sleeve, of course, we may tell the people, we should tell the people, but we're not going to just do it. Okay. So that line comes through the house and it comes to a tank T. Okay. And again, there's all different ways to skin a cat here, but this is the typical way. Okay. We have a tank, we have the pressure tank, we have a tank T, usually there's a union here. Okay. And it's exactly what I said, a tank T. On that tank T, you have 4 items. Okay. One is you have a pressure gauge, so you could tell what the pressure is. You could tell when the pressure goes down, when the pressure goes up. Okay. You have a pressure switch. The switch is turning the pump on or turning the pump off when the pressure drops or the pressure goes up. Okay. Just, you know, otherwise the pump would run all the time, right? You have a drain valve because you got to be able to get rid of that water when you have to replace something.
The pressure switch on the inside runs the pump on the outside?
Yes. See the wire? Wire is coming from a switch, goes into the pressure switch, and then follows the pipe, and goes up and down into the well. Something has to turn that pump on. Something's got to tell it to turn on and turn off. Right?
So there's no settings in the tank to say this is full now, turn off the pump. You have to physically turn off the pressure switch.
Pressure switch
No,
turns
no.
off automatically.
Pressure switch is an automatic thing.
Oh,
When the pressure goes up, click, it turns off.
so it's,
When the
okay.
pressure goes down to a certain point, boom, it clicks back on.
And is that dictated by the tank?
Dictated by the pressure switch.
By the pressure switch?
Right. Pressure switch calls the shots.
Pressure switch is the brain.
That tells it on and off.
And the switch is driven by the gauge?
The switch is driven by water pressure.
Okay.
If there was no gauge there, the switch would still turn off whatever you set it at. It would still turn on whatever you set it at.
It's usually by 20 pounds.
The differential, yes. And they're either, typical is 30 pounds on, 50 pounds off. All right, so then when it goes down to 30 again, click,
Or 40-60, is that also true?
Yes.
You taught us that
or
last week.
70-30. Very good. She's picking attention. Yeah. Oh, remember that. So the pressure switch is the thing. Now, there's also a relief valve on the newer systems. They're usually set at 100 pounds. So let's say if that pressure switch, something goes wacky, goes up to 100 pounds, it should blow off the pressure switch, the pressure relief valve.
That just spits water out from the tank
Yeah.
to lower the pressure and
Right.
make it happy again.
Right, and get somebody mad because the basement's flooded.
Wow.
But,
Better than a fitting blowing off in someone's house and flooding the
right,
whole house.
right, exactly. All right, now you have a tank. What's the tank for?
Holding water.
If you didn't have the tank, what would happen?
No water. No water pressure. No water.
No regulation
You
of
still
pressure.
get water, okay, except you go under the kitchen sink, as soon as you turn the water on to get a glass of water, pump's gonna kick on. You turn it off, the pump's gonna kick off. Immediately, right? So it's gonna go click, click. You need
Oh.
storage, so your pump don't click on, click off, click on, click off.
So it will only do that when that's
It's
like
giving you
empty?
storage, it's giving you capacity. So this will fill up, it'll give you maybe 5 gallons of usage, then the pump kicks on. Pump kicks on, it runs for maybe a minute to fill that 5 gallons up again, then turns off.
Oh, that makes
Otherwise, your
sense.
motor on that pump is gonna be clicking on off, on off, on off, on off.
That makes sense.
Any electric motor that kicks on off, it's not made to do that. You're better off running full time rather than clicking on and off. There's a lot of wear and tear when you kick on and off, on off, on off. All right? This tank has an air bladder in it. Okay, so the top here is filled with air. Has a little tire valve on it. Them tanks should be 2 pounds, when you drain the whole system and you have no pressure, that tank should be filled with 2 pounds less than the cut on pressure on your pressure switch.
So 28 or 38?
Yes. Yes. If not, then it's gonna control the pump, which you don't want it to control the pump. You gotta remember, pressure is equal all over. So let's say I put 28 pounds in here, okay? And now I fill the system up and it kicks off at 50 pounds. How many pounds am I gonna get if I check that tank?
2.
Huh?
2.
Can you repeat the question?
The system's empty.
Okay.
I check that tank and I put 28 pounds in it.
26.
No, I put 28. All right, now I turn the pump on. The pump goes up, 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 shuts off at 50. Now I'm gonna take my gauge, I'm gonna check that again. How many pounds am I gonna have in it?
22.
48.
No idea.
Good guesses. Go ahead.
Should we have known that?
It's 50. It's pressure equals out,
Oh, duh.
right? You have 28 on that, well, the pressure,
Question.
the water's pumping, pumping, pumping.
That's
You got
And
all this.
we have 50 pounds of water that's pushing against that 28, that's gonna make it 50, right?
Okay.
Pressure equals out.
You got us all.
Just gives you a train of thought, making you think, you know? If you put less or more, it's gonna make the tank cycle. If you put more, it's gonna make the tank cycle more often, on, off, on, off, on, off. If you put less, what's gonna happen? No, I'm sorry, if you put less, it'll make the tank cycle on and off. If you put more, what it'll do is make the water go down, 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 and all of a sudden just fall out before the pump kicks on, because it's reading the pressure in here rather than reading water pressure to make it kick on. So when it goes down, when the water goes down to 30, and you have this set at 35, the switch don't know it, because the switch is gonna think you have 35 in it, right? Because now that's gonna overcome the water pressure. So you never have it higher than what you want.
What is that supposed to be again? Did you say 2? No.
2 under, yes. 2 under the cut on pressure. Right? Again, it's not something you may ever need, but if you know a little bit, you
See
are
there.
dangerous.
So is the size of the tank, does it make sense that the size of the tank would dictate what you set your pressure for? So you can calculate volume as to what your usage is?
Volume is volume is volume. Pressure is pressure is pressure.
Mm.
You could have a tank, a huge tank, and you're still gonna set that 2 PSI under, but you're gonna get a lot more runoff with a big tank. Right now, instead of being 5 gallons, you're gonna use 25 gallons maybe before the pump kicks on. And now the pump's gonna stay on longer
Because there's more to fill.
in order to fill that up,
Right,
which is again, better for the pump.
right.
You know,
'cause it
less
longer
runoff.
cycles are better.
Yeah.
So really, it's better to have a bigger expansion tank. Okay.
Yes, yes, definitely. And if you have a 1 horsepower pump, it's pumping more gallons per minute. So you want a bigger expansion tank because more gallons per minute is gonna fill that small tank up faster. So now you want a bigger tank.
Oh, because again,
Right.
that's faster on off, more frequent on off.
Exactly. And again, on, off, and a lot of people don't even realize it, but they could hear that click, 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 click,
I
click.
know. I can tell when my kids are in the shower, who's washing clothes just from hearing.
Okay, so you know, yeah, so you
Yeah.
shouldn't be hearing it click, 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 click,
Yeah.
click, click.
Well, I'll hear it click on, and not, it won't go back
Okay.
and forth, but I'll hear it click on, and I'll be like, oh, someone's having a shower.
Well,
Yeah.
And that's the thing, I mean, it's an education of people, where if you hear your pump clicking on, off, on, off, on, off, ASAP, that tank should be changed.
Does
because-
that mean it's waterlogged? I was waiting to ask.
And what happens if you don't, let's say you don't fix that tank, yeah, I'll wait till next week, I'll wait for a few weeks, I'll wait till next month. What happens?
You burn your pressure switch out too,
And
or your pump.
Pump.
The pump.
Pressure switch too though, because that on off isn't good, but the electric motor does not like turning on off, on off, on off. When you have an electric motors take, let's just say the electric motor pulls 10 amps of electric. Okay, well to start, it usually pulls 14 or 15. So now your start, stop, start, stop, start, stop.
Oh, a lot
One
more.
costing you a lot more electric too, it's killing that pump. So, you know, a lot of people we go for a bad pump. Okay, we replace the pump. Well, listen, I don't know if your tank is bad until I replace your pump.
Ah.
Now
can't
you just
tell.
spent $1,500 on a pump, and I gotta tell you, you gotta go another $800 for a tank.
Yeah.
But, oh
It
well,
could have just
you know,
been
it's-
8, but you procrastinated.
I mean, and it's something they didn't notice maybe, or, you know, maybe they can hear the click click, who knows, maybe you're, you know, it's a good insulated house or whatever, and you can't hear it, but that's what happens.
So when somebody loses their power, then I understand that they can't access their well, the pump, because it's not gonna work without the electric. But they can still access the water that's in the tank.
Yes, they'll
'Cause
get
they won't
whatever, depending on the size of the tank, they have water until
The
they
tank
run
runs
out of water.
Yeah.
They can't replenish it, of course.
Is that bad to use all the water in that tank and leave it empty in that case, or not really?
Not with a submersible, no. No, because it's, even after it turns on, it's pumping from down here, so you're not losing prime in a submersible pump, because it's already down in the water. You're pumping from here up.
Okay.
Make a little sense?
So is that diagram of the jet pump over there?
Yes, yes, that's next. A jet pump. Generally speaking, you have a 2-inch well going down, okay? And either you have a 1-inch pipe going down through it, or there's just a 2 by 1-inch 90 screwed onto the top of it, and your suction point is the entire 2 inches. So in other words, you need suction with a jet pump, because you're sucking water up, okay? Now, let me go back here a minute. One thing I did forget. If that check valve goes bad, okay, and nobody's using water in the house, and water drains down, kicks on, nobody uses water, it turns off, nobody uses water, it kicks on, that means that check valve's bad. A lot of times we put a check valve up here instead of pulling the pump, and you could do that,
Oh,
and
okay.
it would work fine.
Oh.
So
So
the
you
water
don't
will
have to
sit
pull
all
it
the way
out.
up through the 40-foot to the house,
Yes,
but not exit until it's turned on.
right, it's like a straw. If I
It'll just sit there.
close that off, it's gonna sit there.
Huh.
So, all right.
And just not getting off topic here,
go ahead.
but where does the water treatment go into all that?
After.
Next to the expansion
I was-
tank.
Let me keep going.
Okay.
Don't get off topic. Okay, jet pumps. Again, you have this is your pump, okay? And you have a suction side and you have a pressure side, okay? The suction side is going down to the well, okay? Either again, you're using either this whole 2-inch casing as a suction pipe, or sometimes they'll send a 1-inch pipe down it and use that 1-inch pipe as the suction point, okay? It goes in, let's say this is the house, okay? It'll go through the foundation just like this, okay? Of course, we don't need a wire, okay, because the pump's in here, all right? It goes through, but you definitely do need a check valve. Okay, now years ago, some people had a foot valve, what they called a foot valve, down in the well, which was a check valve. Okay, but nobody touches these wells to put a foot valve down the well anymore. You know, generally it's a check valve up top. The check valve goes bad, pump's gonna kick on and off. It could kick on every 5 minutes, but if nobody uses water, it shouldn't, right? You know, the only way it should kick on is if somebody uses water, or if there's a leak. Either in the line somewhere, or the check valve going and letting the water go back down into the well. That makes sense too? All right. So again, we go through the foundation, we use a sleeve. Okay. There's one line going into the pump here. Okay. This is what we call a shallow well pump. A shallow well jet pump. It is only capable of pumping 34 feet of head. Okay, so you have to have water within 34 foot of this spot. From here to here,
Wow.
34 feet.
So it has to be in a higher water.
Gotta be water here. It just is not capable of physically pumping it. The engineering of a jet pump, that's a shallow well jet pump, is not capable of pumping that. All right, so again, they work, and there's plenty of them around here because the water table's up pretty high around here. Okay, but if the water table drops down below it, you're out of luck. All right. It goes into your pump, which is here, and there's a motor behind it. Okay. Your line comes up, and there is a what?
The bit.
Pressure gauge.
Yeah, that thing in the middle.
Who answered that?
He did.
You know what? You're not supposed to answer. All right, that's the pressure gauge. Coming off of here, there's a what?
Relief valve.
No release valve on this one.
Pressure switch.
Very good. Pressure switch. We have to control the pump. Right? Something's got to make the pump turn on and turn off. Okay. There's a wire going into the pressure switch and a wire coming out going to the motor. Okay. Same as the other pump. It controls it. When the pressure goes down to 30, sometimes these are set at 20 or 40 because, again, the quality of pump, I mean, the pump is not as good. Okay. If you have a high water table, you could get 30, 50. You could get higher than that, 40, 60. Okay, but generally you see these are set a little lower. Okay, but same thing, you have a tank and you got a drain valve. Okay, but all your other stuff is up on a pump.
Is it the same size horse on both of those pumps?
It could be, yes. They make these half 3/4 of one. They make these half 3/4 and one, and even bigger. They even make these bigger. I mean, yeah, the motor is, you know, they are capable of doing better.
Just because you have a jet or a sump doesn't mean it's going to be less efficient.
No.
Okay.
A lot of times I will not put a bigger jet in there because I'm afraid of collapsing the well or pulling too much water out of it. You know, if somebody got away with a half horsepower pump and they're pumping water and they're fine, you put a 1 in, you might over pump the well, meaning you might run it dry. I mean, it'll probably reestablish, but you'll pump it faster than it could reestablish. So you have to watch that too. Again, they're older, it's most of the time an older well, and you want to treat it, you want to leave status quo, you know what I'm saying? You don't want to start trying to get more out of it, next thing you know, you're drilling a new well.
Right.
So, these are not legal anymore. You cannot use a 2-inch well. Wells now have to be, I believe, at least 80 feet deep. So 80 feet deep, generally, you're not going to get the...
Oh, so if you have to drill a brand new well somewhere, you're never putting in a jet pump. You're always putting in a
Well, and
submersible.
again, I shouldn't say that, you're stupid if you do, really. Because you just don't get the water, the quality isn't there, the volume isn't there, okay? And if you're gonna put a 4-inch well in, you wanna, it's more efficient to pump water up out of a well than suck water out of a well.
Yeah.
Okay, simple as that. But yes, you could. If you have this here well and this water level here is 15 foot down, you could drop that in. it'll pump it, right? Because it'll pump up to 34 feet.
Oh, so it really just depends on the water table
The
for
water
where you're
level
at,
of where
for
you're at, yes.
which one you go
Yeah.
with.
But you're gonna get a lot more volume out of a submersible pump than
Mm-hmm.
a jet pump.
Just
for
be sure
sure.
to replace
Yeah, it
the
just
jet pump.
sounds. Did you say it's easier to replace a jet pump?
It's out of the water.
'Cause it's not
Yeah,
well.
as long as it's a pump problem and not a well problem or a
Yeah.
check valve problem or a pipe problem.
Yeah.
There's a lot more pieces to this equation than this equation to solve. Okay, I mean, a jet pump's exactly what I said, a jet. There's a jet in there, which is like a little funnel, okay, in these pumps, right in this here body. If that wears out or you get a little piece of rust in there or something like that, it'll pump all day long at 20 pounds, okay, but never stop because it's not able to build pressure. It needs that jet to build pressure.
Stupid question. If it's pumping all day long, where's the water going?
It'll just
Or
stay
it's-
pumping at pressure. Well,
It's just
sometimes it gets to the point where that pump will heat up to a point. You have an impeller that's going round and round and round, right? And that water right there is not going nowhere, right? If people are using water, it's bringing new water up into there. But let's say people are away, and it just pumps and pumps and pumps and pumps.
Mm-hmm.
If you have plastic pipe coming out here, I've seen the plastic pipe melt.
Oh, wow.
It'll get that hot.
Wow.
From the electric of the pump.
From the friction of that impeller, it just heats up that water to a point where it'll actually melt the pipe.
Wow. Well, that's gonna be a mess to come home to.
So, well, then you'll lose prime, right?
Oh, so then it stops pouring.
And now you burn your pump out. Now, why did that happen? Who knows? Is this a problem? Is it a problem down here? Is it a problem with the line going to the well? Is it a problem in the pump itself that caused it? There's a lot more pieces to this equation. This here, you put a pump down the bottom of the well and you're either gonna get water or not. I mean, if you don't, maybe it's electric. Okay, it might be the pipe, but you'll know because it's pressurized. One of the biggest problems with a jet pump, when you have a problem, you have a suction line. Now, I have a little short line drill ran here. It could be a 70-foot line going to the house, who knows? Anywhere's between here and that pump that you have a leak, you're not gonna be able to find it. Why not? Because it's a suction leak. It's not like it's showing water. I don't care if the pipe was laying on the ground.
Oh, if it has a little hole.
You're not gonna see
Wait,
it.
that's
It's
like
gonna
when you're
suck air
drinking
in.
from a straw and you can't get your drink because the straw's busted, right?
Perfect
Okay.
There you
example.
Okay.
go. Good example. Good example. I mean, and that's really it. Think about it. Okay, with this one here, if there's a leak somewhere, you physically see the water coming out.
Because the water's going through the line.
It's pressurized. Right to this point, it's pressurized. Right? There's a check valve down here. That switch turns off. It's holding pressure right to that check valve. Right? If there's a leak in this line here, usually people see a wet spot in their lawn. Right? If there's a leak in this line out here in the yard, you don't see nothing. Right? If there's a leak going through the house, you see water. Over here, you don't see water because it's sucking air. So it just makes it a more difficult thing with a jet pump.
Sorry to bump in and ask a question, but I have a curiosity as to the jet pumps, because I've done submersibles, it's not a big deal with this, but when you have a check valve issue and or pump issue and you lose prime, how do you get prime again? Do you have to use a different pump to pull prime, or you fill in the water line with something?
What you could do, this is your gauge, okay? You unscrew that gauge. And usually there's a T right there.
Mhm.
You could take a gallon of water, fill it
So
up,
you just keep going until it's full?
and fill it. Right, now if it's a check valve, it's going back down to the pump,
Yeah.
into the well, I mean, right? So now you know it's a check valve, you change it, okay? Another way, we just fixed one today. A pitcher pump, the old fashioned pumping. We've got them in all the trucks. And what they do is they take that off, they put the pitcher pump on here,
Okay, and you pump and pull the water up.
and there's a little pump on it. You pump it away. And what are you doing with the pitcher pump? You're sucking air out. And you're putting down in, sucking more air out, sucking more out until you get water. And the pitcher pump could only pump how many feet?
34.
It's a shallow well pump. Okay, now let's say the water level, let's say you hook that pitcher pump up and they start pumping and they can't pull it, they can't pull it, they can't pull it. There's two reasons for that. Either this line is collapsed or there's a problem with this line, or the water's down below 34 feet. Okay, and when you pull that up, sometimes you'll get water, but it'll pull back. You try to pull water up more than what it could do.
So that'll kind of tell you that your well's dry pretty much.
Yes,
Need a new well.
Ooh.
that's how you
Hate
can
to
troubleshoot
deliver that
well.
news.
Right, right.
So I was curious as to how you guys prime them.
What's that?
I was just always curious as to how you guys.
Yeah, that's what we use them pitcher pumps for.
Makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, does it, you know, I mean, I usually will try with water first, just to see,
Yeah.
but if not, pitcher pump. And if you break this open, okay, to put a check valve in, you just let air in. So what happens with all the water?
Or
It
drops right to the bottom.
goes right to the bottom. So if it is a long ways away, you'll be pouring gallons and gallons and gallons of water in there. You get the pitcher pump on there, you pump it right out.
And also with the 2-inch pump versus the 1, then you're probably using 3 times as much water, and it takes 3 times as long to prime it, because it's that much larger pipe.
Yes. I mean, all you're doing is replacing air with water.
Yeah.
Air with water every time you turn it on. You know,
So is the prime like the point where it's like able to be pulling water, and when you lose it, it's because air gets in and there's too much of a gap between where it reaches and then where the water level is?
that pump is not gonna pump air. It's not an air compressor, it's a water pump.
Hey now, valid question.
No, that's really what it comes down to. I mean, it's, if you have air in there, it's not gonna pump.
So then that's why you would put water in, or use the pitcher pump thing, which I'm gonna Google.
Right.
I need a visual on that.
We have one right out. You wanna run again?
What do we do?
The pitcher pump? You know the one we just worked on today.
Okay.
You see them on people's gardens.
Yeah,
Right.
Am I gonna be like, duh, when I see
Right
it?
up front.
And where?
in your yard,
Yeah.
where, between where the, is that like between where we did the
Yes.
water slide and the pool?
Oh, is it like what you're?
Oh, no, that's actually a faucet. That's a
Okay.
frost-free faucet.
Okay.
That's
Okay,
something.
I was like, wait a minute.
I actually, I'm
never
gonna
seen
put one in
it,
next to my Vilco door. I had one of these wells. And I went ahead and put the deep well in. And I'm gonna take one of our pitcher pumps and put it on that well, just so the kids can play
You're funny.
and get exercise.
It looks
So-
like a fire hydrant with a handle on it.
Just got a little diaphragm in there.
I was never picturing that in my brain.
And what you have to do, there's a leather gasket in here, and you gotta fill it with water. What I usually do is I'll bring a bucket of water to the job with me if I need this, and I'll just throw it in the bucket of water and let it sit. Cause that leather gasket, you see how easy? That just pumps, okay? Actually, it's a little hard still, it's still a little wet. This morning we primed it, and it worked, but the leather gasket swells up, okay? And then it makes it a tight fit, so there's a suction when you're pulling it.
Oh.
That's how you actually create that suction. So, but it's the plain and simple product that they used to use years and years ago. After they used to throw the bucket down a well. So now, that's a shallow well jet. Now, this is a big thing that you come across all the time. And that is a deep well jet. Okay, same exact thing, except this will pump more than that 34 feet. Now what they're doing is a jet in this. Remember I told you that little funnel that pulls that? Okay, well what they do here on a deep well jet is they put the jet down here. Okay, so it gives them deeper water they can pull from. And by doing this, what they're doing is they're circulating this water and creating a momentum. Okay, so by returning the water down and then sucking it up, they're creating more velocity. Okay, that's letting it pull more water. Okay, making sense?
So is that for a very low water like?
That's for if you went ahead and you had a lower water table. If you had a 4-inch well, you could send them 2 pipes down.
Gotcha.
Okay, some of these are deep wells where they have 1 pipe going down and there's a leather gasket filling the void, and they'll actually use a 2-inch well years ago. Now, the reason I'm going over this, I'm not gonna go too much into it, because we do not work on deep wells, deep well jets.
Right.
So this is the kicker right there. 2 pipes coming out the end of your pump that go out through the foundation.
Oh.
That is
that's how
a
you
deep
know.
well pump. The check valve's down here in the deep well pump. Okay? And what we will do if they have a 4-inch well, we'll tell the people straight out, listen, yank that thing and put a submersible in it. And then what we'll do is we'll use one of these water lines for water and the other one, that's, you know, because this is underground, right? We'll use the other one for wire, official wire service,
Oh, that's convenient.
and put a submersible in it.
So at that point, you don't even have to pull those pipes out. You just have to pull the funnel thing.
Yes, you just pull, well, no, you pull both of these pipes out of the well, but from the house to the well, you use that as a conduit.
Oh,
they're the
I
pipes you
see, I see.
reuse.
Okay.
So, now, this all sound good so far? Okay, one big thing, and we have trouble with a lot, is when this don't come above ground, or they don't know where this or this is, that's the hardest part of these jobs. Because remember, if this doesn't come above ground, what they do is they have a well just like this, and there's a well cap, a well seal, okay? And the pipe and wire come right out of the top here, and that's 3 foot underground. So what we have to do is come in the house, either connect to the wire and try and locate the wire to find out where it goes down, okay? Or cut the pipe and run a fish tape through the pipe and locate it. Okay, then we have to dig down and find it. At that point, we always try and sell the customer on putting in a pitless. So we cut it, put a coupling on, put a pitless in, and come up above ground. Which right now is the only legal way to do it. They all supposed to come up above ground.
So if they have it underground with the cap like that, that's not technically legal or up to code.
Correct, not anymore.
Can they sell their house with it like that, or would they have to bring it up to code?
They haven't done that yet, but it's coming,
Okay.
I'm sure. Legal is 12 inches above ground.
Okay.
How can you hit that with your lawnmower if it's 12 inches above ground? That's absurd.
You bang into it. It's pretty
careless.
tall.
Or a weed whacker?
Well, people hit them with lawnmowers all the time.
That's 12 inches though.
But, yeah, they just trying to cut the lawn fast or, you know, whatever. Some of these well caps are right on the ground, which is fine, but then what happens if your lawn is in a place where you flood out? Now what are you doing? You're sending water into that
Oh,
well.
it will go in.
Oh, yeah,
Sorry.
yep. I mean, some of them are sealed real tight, but others are not, you know. But that's, again, so replacing a pump isn't always just taking
Pulling it out.
3 screws out of the head and pulling out and lifting up. I mean, sometimes it is, other times it's not so easy, you know. Now, take that equation, okay, right after we had 18 inches of snow.
Oh,
You know what I'm saying? I always tell people straight out, listen, if you don't raise it now, you're stupid, because next time it happens, you know, you dig, I use the same thing all the time. You dig a hole once, fine. You dig it twice, you're stupid.
yeah.
Okay, simple as that. I mean, because it's always gonna be the worst time when it happens again.
Right.
So,
What's the lifespan on each type of pump?
our pumps actually have a 5-year warranty on them. Of course, our labor is only 1 year or 2 if they are a contract customer.
Right.
But there's pumps in there now for 25 years.
Really?
I'm not saying on any of our new ones will last that long. Who knows? You know what I'm
Right.
saying? 25 years ago,
They were made
Yeah.
better.
things were made to last. Where now
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
Made to be
they-
replaced.
yes.
Shortly.
They have, they know.
Yeah.
They figured out it. I'm just trying to think if I'm missing anything. Like I say, this is a big thing you have to know. You really need to, people have to, you have to decide if it's a jet, a shallow well jet or a deep well jet.
We
You
don't,
have to know if the people know where their well is. Okay, that's another thing. we had one in Franklinville where the well was up out of the ground. The guy had a pool put in and had beautiful landscaping around the whole pool, okay? And we looked and looked and looked, and we finally had to locate the well. We found it where the guy said it was. We dug down, got the line. We had to follow the line. It was like 5 foot from where he said, but it was in one of them bulrush plants, the big grass things, and you could not see it at all. It was totally covered in roots and everything, and you could not see it. And it was a bummer, you know. But you'd be surprised how many people don't know where their well is, just like they don't know where their septic is.
Yeah,
They don't worry about it until,
they have to.
Yeah.
and then ends up being our problem, you know. So, so-
The deep well one, just reverting back to that because I know this, but I don't think these girls do. If someone has one of those and he said we don't work on those, we'll refer them to a well driller, right?
yes.
Because it's too much.
Yeah, I would, just tell them, listen, there's a good chance that you may end up needing a new well. Because depending on how old it is, if it's a 2-inch well with that leather gasket going down there, I've had well guys already come out and try and pull them out of the well, and they pull the whole casing and everything right up. Okay, the 2-inch casing.
So they're
At that point, you need a new well.
Yeah.
Well, now, you wanna pay us to do that, and then have to get a well driller? It's being fair to them, is saying, listen, get a well driller, because if that happens, you already have a guy to drill a well for you.
Mhm.
And the only issue that a lot of people come up with is well drillers have a tendency not to worry if you have water or not. They'll say, oh yeah, I'm 2 weeks out. Well, I'll see you in 2 weeks. We're there right away. We take care of people without water. So, that's the only time they may say, well, could you do something for me? And, but all you do at that point is you're not going to please the person unless it really works out right. You know what I'm saying? And, it just makes us look, even no matter what they think or say, at the end of the day, when they have to pay us and now have to pay a well driller, people aren't happy.
Yeah.
So. And any of these things that if you do ever want to take a look at them, they're out there. Just like Mike brought that in, we got the stuff out there. But at least you have an idea of what's going on. Where, remember, if you have a guy down in the end of Millville and there's a bad pump over there, they could go and troubleshoot it, but they're going to need a pump because they don't keep it on the truck. They're going to need a T-bar to get it out of there. They're going to need these things, to get to them in order to do that well. So, and then also they don't know what size that is, half, 3/4, or 1. So usually we bring all 3 with us, when we go.
Is there any way to tell what type of horsepower the pump is by the gauge of the wire? Or no?
Now if the person that put the pump in, they give you 2 stickers with every pump. Okay, a sticker should go on that tank. But was the tank replaced? You know what I'm saying? Now all of a sudden the sticker's gone.
Now, the larger, like 1 horse, isn't that only a 240 volt? I'm wondering if that could be a question to ask, like, is it a
Yeah.
double breaker or a single, because that might narrow it down a little, give us a better idea.
Yeah, I mean, the only one we carry, the only 120 volt pump we carry is a half.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that might be something to ask if it is. And
I mean,
the
most
biggest
of the time
thing,
I don't know, but-
well, do they know
Yeah.
where the well is? Do they know what the bladder, do they know where the breaker is for the pump? I mean, things like that aren't hard to ask. And remember too, depending how big the bladder tank is, if you see a picture and you see a bladder tank standing up that high, there's a good chance it's not a half horse.
Yeah.
Because
Okay?
it's big.
Yeah, you need, our typical one is about 30 inches or so. That's a half horsepower tank. Anything, if you go 3/4 or 1, you really should go bigger. And everybody knows why, right?
Higher pump?
Because it's
faster?
high, it's pulling more water out, so you need more space to store it.
Right.
So the pump don't keep clicking back.
Thank you for answering before Ryan got it. So, did my scribble make sense?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right, I think we covered it, and listen,
That's amazing.
as I go through this stuff, even with